All right, we're back. Luke Thomas Show, 877 Fight 93, 877-344-4893. All right, we're talking about this Conor McGregor tweet last night. I just love this story. I love everything about this story. As I warned you before, I'm going to make the story all about me, which I know can be annoying. I acknowledge it. I acknowledge that up front, that this may get a little annoying. But I have to tell you, I have never seen a story that was more representative of my life that has nothing to do with me. Granted, it has nothing to do with me. It is my life. This is my life. If you're just joining us, let me set the table here. So, I don't know how long ago this... What was the date on the Q&A video that Firas Zahabi, the trainer at Tristar Gym, did on his YouTube channel? Do you know that offhand?
No, I'm going to look it up right now.
Wasn't too long ago, right? It was relatively recent.
I think it was like this week or something like that.
So Faraz Zahabi, as I mentioned, trainer to the stars, George St-Pierre, Ryan Hall, his own brother, Eamon Zahabi, Rory McDonald, you name it, out there in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, one of the best minds in the game, a student of martial arts, a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Well, this was fairly old. This came out December 14th.
Right. December 14th. More to my point. Okay, so he does this Q&A video where he takes a lot of questions and he answers them. And again, it could be on a whole range of things. Favorite knockout, what's the key to controlling someone in the clinch, favorite entry for a leg lock from standing, all different kinds of stuff that you might ask a celebrated, smart, decorated MMA coach. Somebody asked him as well, if Conor McGregor fought Max Holloway again, how would it go? Here was his answer.
If I had to pick Max Holloway versus McGregor today, I would pick Max Holloway. Why? I think he's, when they fought the first time, for those of you who don't know, McGregor won in easy 3 rounds. McGregor outstruck Holloway in the first 2 rounds, and then in the third round, he outgrappled Holloway. In the third round, I believe it was in the second or third round, McGregor tears his ACL, so he decides to go heavy grappling, and he even shows that he could outgrapple Holloway. That happened a long time ago. I think Holloway has grown leaps and bounds since then. He has grown leaps and bounds. So in my opinion, Holloway would outpunch him. He would outwork him. He would do very much what Diaz did, but more.
Okay. I'm not asking you to agree. I'm not asking you to disagree, but it sounds like his opinion, and he gives some reasons for it. He elaborates. Cut 2.
I think McGregor got away with a lot of stuff like the leg kicks against Diaz. I don't think he'll have that against Holloway. But Holloway has the same kind of output as Diaz, the same kind of chin as Diaz. He's more athletic than Diaz. He has more variety than Diaz in his attacks. He has more kicking and kneeing and elbowing. And his chin is just phenomenal. So I really think he would take it in later rounds. I think the blueprint for beating McGregor is more well understood by the roster. And I think that if they fight at 145 or 155, I really like Max Holloway now.
Okay, again, not asking you to agree or disagree, but that's his opinion, and he's providing additional pieces of what he considers to be evidence to support that claim. Lastly, he actually kind of softens it. When he says he would favor Max Holloway, he's saying out of 10 fights, he'd probably win 6. Here's what he said.
Now, it's not to say McGregor can't win, but I would give it like a 60-40 Max Holloway. Okay, it's not a 99 to 1%. Okay, that's not my position. I just think that Max Holloway, if they fight 10 times, 6 times out of the 10, let's say even 7 times out of the 10, okay, I would say that Holloway wins. Why? Because I think there'll be a lot of striking, of course, but there's going to be a lot of clinching. And I think that early in the striking, of course, McGregor wins, but later it shifts all the way to Holloway's side. He's got better conditioning. He's got better durability. The grappling's going to be on Holloway's side. The clinch work, the knees, the elbows, the tie-ups. I think Holloway will just outwork him. He'll outpace him. And there's going to be a point where McGregor's just going to slow down. So I like McGregor early, round 1, round 2. But after that, 3, 4, and 5, I think is going to belong to Holloway. And even one of the first 2 rounds can belong to Holloway. So I really think that Holloway now is in his prime. He is in his prime, and it's going to be very, very difficult to beat a Holloway.
Now, there's a series of arguments all made in there that are worth debate that you may agree or disagree with, but it seems like pretty fair, reasonable analysis. This is what it prompted. By the way, you said that video came out on December 14th?
Yes.
Right. So nearly a month later, we get a tweet about it from Conor McGregor. This came out last night. Hey, Faraz. By the way, I won't dock him for it because I've had any number of tweets with horrible misspellings and a series of grammatical errors or punctuation problems, but let it be known this one is filled with them. Hey, Faraz is misspelled, not capitalized. Young man afraid to get in and fight, himself. Stop talking about me like you know me, you twerp. You are what age? Why are not in there yourself? Are you not up to it? You rent dorms and hit a clock for a living. Shut your pie, kid. How do you shut a pie?
Put that
I
on
think
a
you
shirt.
mean shut your pie hole,
I want to put that on a shirt.
right? Shut your pie.
Yeah.
It's like, you ever heard someone call a mouth a soup cooler? It's like, shut your soup.
You know what it is, too? Like, in this age where everyone's abbreviating everything, like, we all know
Yeah.
what that means. Like, shut your pie. I think, yeah, that'll work. Put it on a shirt.
All right, well, look, I can't. Let he who is in without sin cast the first stone. I have had a number of tweets that have been just problems, so I won't get on him for that. Here's what I will say. I love that tweet, and I love it because I disagree with basically everything in there, and everything in there is every problem I've ever faced. Here is the situation that we live with in MMA today. Okay? Number one, let me just be clear about this. Faraz Zahabi did absolutely nothing wrong. Nothing. I'm not asking you to agree with everything he had to say, and you could debate him, and that'd be fine. He's not an oracle of truth. He certainly is a person worthy of being listened to. I think he makes a ton of great points, but everyone is imperfect, and everyone has to make an argument, and the argument is either sound or it's not. It's not sound because of the person who is making it. So that's one thing I want to make clear. But the bigger takeaways for me from this, and I can tell you they're true because not only have I lived them, I live them every single day. Fighters are the most sensitive people on earth, and to a degree, I understand that. To a very strong degree, I understand it. They take it way too far. To the point where, the third thing I'd say is, they treat MMA like it's an honor culture. Right? So an honor culture is what? It is where honor is something that can be bestowed upon you and taken away. And if someone says something about you or does something, that honor can be removed and you have to take acts to restore it. This is how life may have lived, let's say, in the Middle Ages or something, how societies were conducted. We now have a culture of dignity where it does not matter what you say. You cannot take my dignity from me. Right? That's the way we arrange modern society here. In Los Estados Unidos and other places as well. So for one thing, we're adopting this weird backwards honor culture in MMA where these perceived verbal slights get blown up into challenges of your very identity when that's not what it is. This is the reality. Everyone's like, what's good advice for getting into MMA media? Prepare for this kind of nonsense all the time. All the time. Firas Zahabi is an MMA coach, but he was doing a version of media, so to speak, with that YouTube video. Here is what fighters hear. Virtually none of the good things you say about them. Here's what they definitely hear. Anything that you actually say that's bad about them, or anything they perceive to be bad about them. I have said it before. People think, well, I don't know what is in John Jones's case, but there's a lot of fighters who won't talk to me, elite ones, champions. And then I'll find out what it is. You could say, well, look, they don't have to talk to you. And that's right, they don't. And they don't have to come on your shows. That's right, they don't. And you could say, well, maybe your show's not big enough. Okay, sure, there's bigger shows than the one I do, certainly. But then you see them go on much smaller ones. And then you find out what they're actually mad about is the most innocuous form of criticism imaginable. Even the ones who have a career reputation for themselves in their own careers for having big mouths, right? Oh, that fighter had a big mouth and they talked all this nonsense. You would think that they would kind of get that in the media, you're not even trying to do that, but you might run into territory where you can't say relentlessly positive things. They don't. They don't. None of them get it, dude. This is the reality. You want to be in MMA media, and again, this is a coach, but in the role in which he's serving in this capacity, and you want to do something where you have an opinion, get ready for the dumbest blowback imaginable, which is what this is. First of all, if Conor hadn't even tweeted that, would we have known about it? We didn't talk about that at all on this show.
Luke, actually, I think that was a news story earlier. That's why I thought it came out early in the week.
Maybe Bloody Elbow put out a thing about his analysis, but it wasn't. We didn't prioritize it. on this show and this rundown at all. And now what these fighters do by focusing on all the negative things that they perceive people to be saying about them, they signal to the world and make it a much bigger story than it ever would have been. And by the way, if you hear what Faraz said, you can disagree with it. I'm not here to tell you that it's unassailable wisdom, but it's a good faith argument. Now, you could also make the argument that Faraz has continuously picked against McGregor in fights. Okay, fine. Whatever you want to say, I'm not telling you he is the authority on all things McGregor. Everybody, no matter how much wisdom they acquire through a life in martial arts, are going to get things wrong. Sure, whatever. But it's not made in bad faith. It's an argument, and you can disagree with it or not. And this is the other part about the tweet king of banter that drives me crazy. Look, folks, I do not present to you, certainly I'm not the only analyst in the game. I don't present myself even close to being the best analyst. I don't present myself as close to being anything regarding an analyst who should have anything they say be accepted at face value. Far from it. It's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is in MMA, we take the argument from authority to the highest, most absurd, indefensible levels. What is the argument from authority? In short, it is that because someone occupies a position, everything they say by virtue of holding that position is therefore true. So in other words, so-and-so is not a fighter, so-and-so is. The person who makes fight analysis because they're a fighter is de facto correct by virtue of having it. Now, obviously, you want to be deferential to that fighter, and obviously you want to listen to what they have to say. But what we do in MMA is we take that deference to the extreme level. I always say listen to fighters before me. I will always say that. They are going to have wisdom I cannot possibly even come close to having, or anybody else who's never stepped in that cage. Yes, be deferential to them. But are we really going to suggest that everything they say is correct? Every piece of analysis they have is correct? Why? Why would you say something like that? It can't possibly be true. And they do this to each other. Are we really going to suggest that Faraz Zahabi is incapable of making fight analysis? Really? Are we really going to suggest Faraz Zahabi, by the way, is not entitled to have his own opinion? I mean, yes, anyone can speak back against him if they want. What is the point? What on earth could be the point? To magnify this person's pretty reasonable assessment of how a future fight would go? What is that? It is because the argument from authority in MMA, and not just with fighters, by the way, my own media brethren do this too. Well, we work in media, you don't understand. Right, that doesn't mean they don't have a good media criticism. Or promoters. I promote fights, you don't, you wouldn't understand. Right, but as a consumer of the product, I can tell you that I can look around and tell you everyone else is unhappy. They don't care. An argument is strong, not by virtue necessarily of who makes it, but by how strong the argument is. And again, you can debate how strong Faraz Zahabi's argument is about Conor McGregor. But to say, you didn't fight, I did, therefore your analysis is invalidated, is the argument from authority and therefore nonsense. Cannot be taken seriously. And you see this kind of thing in MMA, and it's done by every single party. Media does it, fighters do it, promoters do it, trainers do it, coaches do it, advertisers even do it. I'm up here, you're down there, end of discussion. And it's so stupid. It's so self-defeating. It's so ridiculous. You add on top of that this, what do you want to call it, 15th, 13th century honor culture that we're trotting back out into the 21st century. Oh my God, this guy made a criticism of me. How am I going to sleep through the night? It wasn't like he made a rap diss. You know what I mean? He didn't bring over Logan and Jake Paul to do a Team 10 rap diss. He just said, hey, I think if these guys fought 10 times, Conor would only win 4. And he gave reasons for it. Who cares? Now, people might say to this one, by the way, KOB, oh, well, Conor's trying to set up a fight with GSP. Who do you think Faraz Zahabi is? Some 19th century foghorn leghorn, I got to stand up for my pupil's honor. I do say so. I do declare that you have tweeted about me. Now my student will come to defend my honor. What are you talking about? No, it's not. It meaningfully moves the needle on that nowhere.
And the funny thing is, too, like, you forget how this even came up. He was answering someone's question. Like, someone asked him, what do you think would happen? And
he didn't go out of his way to make a video about it. Someone's like, hey, here it is.
He was doing a mailbag, essentially, and someone asked, what do you think would happen in the
way,
Conor McGregor rematch?
It's an interesting question.
Yes, it is absolutely an
interesting question.
I'm pretty sure I've heard Joe Rogan have this same conversation over and over again on his podcast. What would happen if these two guys fought again?
How about on every podcast?
Yeah.
And I don't know if Max Holloway wins. I couldn't tell you that. I have no clue. I'm not predictions. I suck at. I am not in the business of making them. But am I listening to his analysis and am I hearing anything glaringly agenda-driven? Not really. I think he makes a lot of great points about the work rate, about the leg kicks, about Max's range, about his chin, about being a sort of a Diaz who can do a lot of Diaz things, and then add on several other factors of offensive dynamism. Right? Okay, I'm not presenting it to you as ironclad truth. I'm simply saying, what is so objectionable about that? Here's what's objectionable about it. The notion that anybody other than a fighter, and by the way, even if a fighter did it, they would just demean that other fider's career, right?
What fights have you won, bro? Like,
yeah, what have you done?
How's
right?
the prelim card? Like that.
Yeah, exactly. As if this invalidates any ability to form a reasonable, coherent, defensible position. Dude, I get so sick of this. I have lived this life where you find out why a fighter doesn't want to come on your show, and you're like, fine, they don't want to come on your show. I mean, life goes on. I have built a show where I don't necessarily need that, but you hear about it, it's like, oh, I must have said something terrible, and they're like, oh, it was something you said about this topic, and you're like, King of Banter, back me up on this. How many times have we heard this? They'll say, oh, it was about a certain topic. We'll go back and listen to the audio, and we won't even know exactly what in the audio upset them because it's so innocuous. True or false?
I've only been with this.
Jose, true or false?
Oh, it's absolutely true. I've only been with this station like 2 years, and it's happened a multitude of times where I've been like, wow, really? And even when we find out what it is, we're like, wait, that 3-second thing? That's what they got mad at?
Yes. Yes.
Someone laughed at this? Like, that's what we got mad at here?
Because it's honor culture.
Yeah.
It's honor culture. What I say takes your honor from you rather than being a dignity culture, which is it doesn't matter what a jamoke like me says. You retain it independent of that. You know, I just find it absurd. It's like if you wanted to disagree with Faraz and point out he was wrong, there are ways to do that. Very good ways to do that. I just feel like, I don't know, man. We'll talk about this a little bit later in the show. Maybe he feels pressured because he's coming off that loss. Maybe, by the way, Faraz has trained Joe Duffy, right? So I think he's had a bit of an issue with that for a while. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is. And as I mentioned, I think Faraz has picked against him a number of times in these fights. And again, whatever. You get him right, you get him wrong. I've been right with Conor fights. I've been wrong with Conor fights. It happens. I find it hysterical because this is the kind of thing everyone in MMA media deals with. You want to know why a lot of MMA media folks kind of don't have opinions about stuff and kind of tread that middle line? Because of that. They just don't want to deal with it. I just don't care anymore. I can't construct a show where I'm like, well, let me see how I really feel about this, and I'm dialing back my opinion just on the off chance a fair but reasonable criticism crosses the ears of a fighter, and then they want to write you off. You want to write me off? Write me off, bro. We'll move on to the next one. That is just how I'm ready to operate from now on. I cannot live in that world. You want to operate on an honor society? You do that. It's a dignity culture over here. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel. There's other videos you can watch right here. If you've never heard my SiriusXM radio show, there's a link in the description box below. You can try it for free for 30 days. The Luke Thomas Show airs weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern on SiriusXM Fight Nation, Channel 93. Catch y'all next time.